Hello, everyone. This is Saima, and today's burning topic is somatization. What it is, why we do it, and what kind of therapies, interventions can help us. So, this is an educational video about somatization and especially how it can occur. And to recognize it, give it a name. They say that it can't scare us if we can give it a name. So when we give it a name, it can, really help us understand what to do, how to do it, and what to expect at the end of that. Okay. So somatization is basically an inability to feel. And, it's basically that people with that issue cannot verbalize emotions, cannot express their feelings because they are in trauma, psychological trauma that is coming from early childhood. There can be traumatic events in anyone's life, which were really not under the control of the parents. There could be, any kind of abuse, from physical, emotional to spiritual abuse, experiences of humiliation that have been buried deep into the brain. And what happens with that kind of trauma is a change in the neural networks of the brain. Somatization is happening at the endocrine level, meaning the hormone balance in the body. It can happen in the pain centers of the body, so basically the nervous system itself. um, some psychologists and some evidence exists that not receiving enough comforting as a baby and as a toddler, not being allowed to express feelings, and not being given enough hugs is one major cause. Other issues can be because of training the child to use the washroom, how we train the child for that. So there's a huge number of reasons, including the loss of a parent. Basically, the body has learned it is not safe. It's not completely safe. There can be a tremendous amount of hypervigilance in somatized people, and because they're unable to articulate or feel the fear, what can often happen is that the fear is masked by a number of behaviors, as coping mechanisms. Now, they can be healthier behaviors or they can be extremely difficult behaviors. I am not a psychiatrist, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a psychologist. I am basically, how I like to define myself is I'm just a very curious person. And I'm fascinated by mind and body, and I'm fascinated by human beings. And that is the reason why I have studied this topic, because it's been my passion for most of my life to understand human beings, why we're here, what are we here for. And basically, this part of somatization and our emotional strength or emotional regulation became more and more interesting over time, because I realized how emotional regulation can lead to our success and happiness as human beings, to healthier societies, to actually, a positive effect on incomes, believe it or not, on the GDP of a country and the happiness indices, the crime levels, the satisfaction with politics, the honesty and integrity of news. All of these, when I kind of went down the rabbit hole through my various experiences and questioning of why things are a certain way, they would all come back to this place: the child and the family, the culture, the belief systems, and the absolute and complete, safety or lack thereof that children have. So, being a mother, and wanting to do the best I could was also a large factor in observing my own behavior. So that's what started my interest in this. And then I went on and I kind of studied it. I found modalities, interventions, and ways of looking at this very, very interesting, especially when it came to um, energy psychology. I found a tremendous relief, and I would do that with people as a therapist, and I saw results that I hadn't seen. I saw results in using hypnotherapy. I saw results in other hypnotic tools. I saw results using yoga. I saw results, tremendous results with mindfulness therapy. Literally, people's eye contact, anxiety levels, ability to maintain a stable attention span and focus were all related to emotional trauma. In fact, trauma, any kind of trauma, for example, injury, there will always be an emotional component to it. For some people, they'll be able to process the emotions. They may have a few dreams. They may cry. They may have like a really strong reaction of expressing the feelings. And then they're comforted by loved ones around them and they're fine. They're able to process and release it and go and move forward. But it's very difficult in those cultures, family cultures and social cultures, where there is a huge judgment on the feeling itself. It's not okay to feel this because it means you're a bad person. It's not okay to feel this because it means you're a mad person. So whenever we bring that into the piece where there's a tremendous fear of judgment about mental health, insanity, losing your mind, losing self-control, actually, paradoxically enough, emotional regulation becomes harder, not easier. So, if there's one thing you can take away from this little segment, it is allow emotions to be felt. They self regulate on their own. Actual fact, 90 seconds is the strongest and longest that an emotion can last. And the more we try to shut it down, the longer it actually will last, because then it's just going to be swallowed in and put into the body. So we need to do the opposite thing as caregivers than what we think we should be doing, which is most of us think we should keep our children quiet. We should not, let them run around and express their feelings because that's inappropriate. So all this civilization may not be very civilized when it comes to our mind body, our intelligence, our neural networks. Isn't that amazing? Here we thought smarter meant colder, and I'm just kind of challenging that and saying that smarter may mean warmer. Smarter may mean more empathic. Smarter, in fact, does mean more empathic. Because people who are able to have emotions, verbalize emotions, express emotions, they are often very high on the intelligence scale as well. They can handle chaos, they can handle ambiguity, they can handle things to be uncertain. Isn't that interesting as well? So, a little bit of psychology, and then we get started on somatization and what to do about it. Somatization generally is, expressed a lot in the healthcare system. Honestly, if you walked into a walk-in clinic right now, there would be at least 8 out of 10 people some level of somatization. It's not been safe to express their feelings. They don't know that what's actually causing the body pain. A large part of that is actually a feeling. A headache is actually a feeling. And many, many things that we think are actually a crisis or an illness is often the way that our emotions, because they weren't able to be verbalized or felt, they were just sort of put into the body in a way that's like a, an analogy that is instantly understandable. But what we don't realize is that it actually changes the neurology, meaning that the way we think, it affects the way we think. So we may have chronic anxiety as a result. We may have chronic pain as a result. We may be chronically fatigued because we haven't developed the neurons, the neural networks to actually be allowed to express our feelings. And so once we express our feelings, we're able to get it out of our system. Once we get it out of our system, oh, we feel suddenly really light and energetic and able to get on with the rest of the day. So, somatization can be unlearned. That's the beautiful thing, that we try hard enough, we work hard enough, we are going to be able to change that tendency. But let me tell you what the work is going to look like. The work is going to look like energy psychology, for example. The work is going to look like finding somebody safe you can talk to, because once you start to connect those neurons, you're going to want to yell and shout and scream, and bring out all that repressed anger and all that frustration that's behind how you're feeling physically. So the tears, it could be tears. So there's going to be a reaction, and it's going to feel like you don't have much control over it. And it's going to be, if that kind of stuff annoys you, then you may be annoyed and angry at yourself for feeling this way. And that's sometimes where people get stuck. They're like, okay, so I'm feeling this way. This is not okay. I'm emotionally dysregulating. Because, first of all, we don't really understand emotional regulation, not in the normal culture that we are part of. So we may think, oh my goodness, I'm losing it. Look at me getting so emotional. Let me, all of that. And then we sort of, oh goodness, this can't happen. And we just sort of try to stuff it back again because the old way has worked for us for so long. But I'd like you to consider the fact that it has only worked to make a person really tired all the time, very fatigued, and in body pain. It hasn't worked to truly give them confidence. It hasn't worked to truly make them courageous and to go after life. This is one life that we've got, right? This life is so incredibly precious. It's such a privilege to live this. So when we sort of, shut down the negative emotions, we're also shutting down the positive emotions, the ability to connect with the others, with the ability to, love, the ability to create art. We sort of are shutting all of that down as well. So we as a society definitely need safe spaces. So that's going to be part two of this story. The part one of the story is to allow the emotion and learn how to allow the emotions through various interventions, including talk therapy. That itself is extremely powerful for allowing emotions in a safe place. Also, we have mindfulness. Mindfulness is absolutely amazing for doing two things: allowing the emotion and then also learning the regulation. So, if there's one thing you can do, which is the fastest, quickest, bestest method that will keep you very stable as you process, that would be mindfulness. So, the first thing that I recommend to anyone who comes to work with me is mindfulness training. Of course, if somebody is just totally uncomfortable with that, then we don't. We kind of let it happen when they're ready for it. But really, mindfulness training is available on Holistic Happiness Academy as a free course for anyone who wants to work on themselves. And it's got all that information and insight that me as an individual, me as a therapist, me as human being living in this world and dealing with the way it is, all of it in there. So that's one thing you can do. The second thing that I really, really recommend is doing stuff that actually allows the body to unrepress itself, which would be Reiki. So, forms of energy psychology, such as Reiki training, other tools like therapeutic touch, those are all very, very calming at the somatic level, at the physical level, and they actually allow the trauma to surface and be processed. And what does processing really mean? It means verbalizing the trauma, expressing the words of the trauma. That's the most important thing that you can do to teach your brain and body nervous system to stop somatizing, is to verbalize the emotion so that the body knows there is an alternative to somatizing. So that's the first thing, the Reiki or mindfulness classes, that's the first thing that happens for people, is that they process it and they're able to verbalize it. Their body feels lighter, almost like, I don't think I've ever met a client yet who doesn't feel lighter after talking, you know. So that's a major part of it. The third thing that you can do is some self-care, which is journaling, expressing the feelings that you usually put away in the body. And it may create IBS, it may create respiratory distress, like a squeezed feeling. It may create, sometimes I've even noticed allergies coming up for people because of the long-term somatization. And then, um, you know, um, and the body pain and the lack of energy. The body pain, lack of energy, just feeling constantly fatigued, those are all signs of somatization. And most of us actually do deal with that. Anybody who's had any trauma in their life can relate to that. So the next thing that I highly recommend is yoga. And this is a meditative mindfulness, trauma informed yoga, through a teacher who's kind of immersed in yoga for a while. So there is a sense of calmness and a sense of space that person's going to have, which will allow, I think it really helps energetically for other people to allow the trauma to surface. So you're not alone. One thing I want to say, a lot of times there's a stigma about, okay, am I abnormal for being this way? No, it was just extreme lack of awareness that we've had in global cultures, where we did not understand how children absorb trauma and how it can affect us for the rest of our lives. There was a huge gap in mental health awareness, which is the reason why people who have any issue start to think that they're the crazy ones. They're the ones who have this issue, where the truth of the matter is they're the smarter ones, because they figured out they have an issue, instead of projecting that into the rest of the world and blaming the rest of the world for how they're feeling. So people who are proactive, people who recognize that they need help, you are the smart ones. You're the ones who are not crazy. Believe it or not, we're all sort of living in this blindfolded world where, we've learned to sort of seal away, block away, and desensitize. This is what is normal. And at some level, we know that this is not normal. And that's the level at which I would like to speak with all of you, is to tell you that you're normal. That stuff out there is a little bit weird. Honestly, it really is. And so, I'd love to hear your comments about this. And I just want to reassure you that it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to talk about feelings. You are not abnormal for having feelings. It's the bullying, it's the abuse, it's the stonewalling, it's the coldness that is not human and that is not intelligent. And if you're thinking that, being this way means that you're less intelligent or less adapted or less regulated, let me, invite you to consider a little bit about what adaptation really means and what regulation really means. Regulation doesn't mean that we tolerate everything. Adaptation doesn't mean actually that we have no response to life. Interestingly enough, adaptation, if you're looking at the deeper, more significant technical meaning, is that we have a reaction to life. And sometimes our reaction can have consequences that we cannot control, because until we do that, we can't control what happens next. So, like trusting the process of life that flows through you and through the world around you is perhaps the only thing only sane thing that we can do. And anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to be posting up it on Holistic Happiness Academy as well, along with some articles and resources on somatization that are written by medical doctors, so that we can bridge this gap between the establishment and the new age energy psychology. It's an emerging phenomena. Many of us may wonder if it's woo-woo, if it's weird or not. No, 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 none of that. It's just a new way to look at things. Like anything, it's different and it's a learning curve. It can be very helpful, very it can transform people's life. That's how powerful it can be. On the other hand, it is going to shake the status quo for a lot of people, and there may be consequences of that, because there'll be a little bit of a backlash when we acknowledge our feelings and we assertively say that this is what we're feeling, in a world where you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to shake the status quo, the paradigm. But if you are interested in doing something positive to better the lives of yourself and others, well, this is pretty darn powerful. So, I look forward to hearing from you. Look forward to you joining Holistic Happiness Academy, taking courses, learning more about these things, and being super informed makes you very powerful, very strong, and able to face a lot of things. So I hope to be that person in your life, that voice, that coach, that friend, that therapist who helps you live your happiest and best possible life with whatever the cards life has dealt you. So take care. Bye now.